All right. So we'll just wait for guys to join. Wait patiently for guys to join. I believe. So as soon as you join, please kindly just let me know. You can just drop something in the chat box and like the video, please. As soon as you join, like the video. Let's always remember that practice. As soon as you join, like the video and drop a message in the chat box so that I will know that you are here. As soon as you join, okay. I love Eniola, you are welcome. AY Guitar, Dora, my class captain, you are welcome. I welcome every one of us to this section. This is going to be a final exam section on this course. Today we are not treating question and answer. We'll go straight to the course material and pick out every important thing we can set our eyes on. Every important thing we can set our eyes on. Be very ready to chat a lot, type a lot, because as you are typing, you are also putting them in your brain so that you'll be able to recall in the exam when you are faced with a question. So please, let's be ready to type. Let's be ready to type. You'll be typing so many definitions, so many what do we call it? Just be ready. Be ready. We have a lot of work to do. Be very ready. And I pray that my network will be at its best today. All right, welcome guys. Please don't forget, as soon as you join, like the video and then let's get set. I will share my screen of the course material now, GST103. I just hope that okay. So hold on. I'm trying to set up the course material so that we will not have any issue. So just hold on while I'm doing that. You can to get the best of my network so that nothing will be an hindrance. It's going to be a long section and I don't want anything to disturb you. Okay, so I think the course material is now available and we are good to share. Please don't forget to like this video. It's very important. Don't forget to like this video. And as soon as you are able to see my screen, you let me know. As soon as you're able to see my screen, you let me know. All right, so I am now trying to share my screen, and I want to believe it will be visible very soon. So please, on your side, as soon as the screen is showing, you let me know. As soon as the screen is showing, you let me know from your side there. I believe it's visible. If your network is okay, my screen is visible now. I want to believe that. Good morning, everyone. Damilola, Peace, Joy, Sadiq, Mary, and Francis, Ifeoluwa. Please tell all GST103 candidates, whether you are in mass com or not, tell them to join. Tell them to join. Let's look at this material together. Let's study for exam. Let me show you the way to read the course material for exam and get the best of it. All right, it's yes, I know that it's visible now, but I will zoom it a bit so that we can get the best of it. I think zooming it a bit will help us to get the best of it. Okay. If it's blur in your side, change your quality settings. It's not from my side, it's from your side. You change your quality settings. So let's look at the table of content if we have any. Okay, unfortunately, this course material does not have any table of content. They went straight into module 1, which is introduction to computers. I would have liked us to even jump this module 1, but let's not jump anything, because what you feel like jumping might eventually be what they will dwell on. So let's just touch our aim today, or in this final exam marathons section, is to touch all definitions. This is how to study for exam. You pick out the definitions, remove all the redundancies. That is what summaries do. All the summaries you are buying, you are purchasing around, that is what they do. They remove the redundancies, pick out definitions, important words, and get out. Now, from this introduction, we'll pick out one single statement here, that computer is fast becoming the universal machine of the 21st century. And what that means is that in this 21st century that we are in, you will see that computer is now taking the lead. Everywhere you go, no matter the country you go, everyone wants to use the computer in one way or the other to ease their job, for several things, several works, several fields. All fields are now employing the computer. Even businesses now, they use the computer. So that is the meaning of computer is fast becoming the universal machine of the 21st century. I would like you to type it individually. Try it. Computer is fast becoming the universal machine of which century? So that is a question for you. Which century is that? Which century did the computer became a universal, or is fast becoming a universal machine? I want to believe you guys can hear me and of course see my screen. Thank you. I informed you earlier at the beginning of the class that we will be doing a lot of typing. That is what will help you to retain some of the things. You may not be able to retain everything, but the little you'll be able to retain. We pray that that will be enough for your exam. So computer is fast becoming the universal machine of the 21st century. And the early computers, they were very large in size and too expensive. Only some few individuals are able to own them, and basically only the programmers are able to operate them. So if you weren't a programmer during the early stage of computers, you will not be able to operate the computer then. Then it's a very large thing. In fact, it fills the whole room. The memory is a very big drum. All this small memory that you now hold now, micro memory you now hold around. The initial, when the computer just started, it was a very big drum that you can't even carry around. That was the memory. So What is a computer? That's the next thing we're going into. A computer is basically defined as a tool or machine used for processing data to give required information. In exam, there are several ways this question comes in. Ask you, a dash is basically defined as a tool or machine used for processing data to give required information. That is a computer. Be very ready. When you see the definitions, that one should be very cheap. A computer is basically defined as a tool or machine used for processing data to give required information. Now, you've seen a computer settings before. You've seen a computer settings before, and you know how a laptop look like, or even a desktop in the office or offices. So I want you to type the definition of a computer the way it is here in the material, not in your own terms, the way it is here in the material. If your chat cannot take it, just type as much as it can take. A computer is basically defined as a tool or machine used for processing data to give required information. Assuming this is an exam, and then they say a computer is dash, which means you are now to type this whole grammar. So help me to type it. Basically defined as a tool or machine used for processing data to give required information. The reason why you need to be typing is that you are creating consciousness for yourself. What you type is what you are engaging with, and you are likely not going to forget. Yes, Dora is the one opening the floor for that. Thank you. I need every other person to type it. Don't just copy, don't just say somebody has typed it. Type your own. The way you would type it in the exam, type your own. Now, while you are typing that, you already know the definition of a computer. What is computer capable of doing? This thing we are saying computer, what does it do? It's capable of taking input data through the keyboard unit. It's not only the keyboard we use for input, but the basic example of input devices, we have keyboard. So taking input is just very simple. You as a human being, you are an example of a computer. You take food through your mouth. The food you take through your mouth becomes an input data, become a data that you input into your system. It goes down to your esophagus, down to your stomach, your large intestine, and then some processing takes place in your tummy, which separates the unwanted ones to the large intestine, the wanted one to the small intestine, and then the large intestine gives out the result as a waste through your anus, while the small intestine give out the result as uh, nutrients to your body for fresh skin, for glowing, and then for energy and the rest of them. That is the same thing computer operate as. You give it data, something you want to process, you give it to the computer through the input devices like the keyboard. The CPU, which is the one responsible basically for processing, will process it. And after processing, you have several mediums of seeing your result, which is the output. It could be through the printer, to your monitor, you can see your result. So the computer is capable of doing three basic things, or more than three. The first one is that it takes input through the input devices, which is like the keyboard example. The computer can store data. It stores data on things like diskette, hard disk, or other mediums. And it can also process. It does the processing in the CPU, the central processing unit. Please kindly type the full meaning of CPU in your chat box. Everybody online, chat the full meaning of CPU. Make sure you learn the correct spelling of processing. I can bet you that this one is a common question almost every semester. The tendency you will not see the full meaning of CPU as a question is very low. So processing is done in the CPU, and then it gives out the result. So basically, there are four functions listed here that the computer is capable of doing. So if they ask you in the exam that the computer is capable of doing the following, that is the way they used to ask the question. Let me just give you now that the computer is capable of doing the following except. So they will list the question like maybe taking input data through the keyboard, storing data in the input devices, storing the input data on the memory devices like diskette, hard disk, and the rest of them, then processing it as at the central processing unit. Then the last one, maybe they will now say taking input through the output devices. That is the option they used to, the odd option they used to ask. They used to add to it, taking input through the output devices. That is very odd. It's not possible. It take input through the input devices. So that is obviously the answer. So be very attentive. What are the four things the computer is capable of doing? The basic things, we can classify every activity of the computer as: one, it takes input through the input devices like the keyboard. Two, it stores that input in the memory unit like the diskette, the hard disk, and the other medium. Then it processes the data, or it processes the data that you give it as input. It processes it, and that process or processing takes place in the CPU, which we call the central processing unit. And then it gives out the result as an output, either on your screen. Can you type, or sorry, kindly type the full meaning of VDU? VDU. Be very ready to answer so many abbreviations in this course during the exam. Because the course is full of abbreviation, they like to ask you a lot of abbreviation, both in the objective section and even in the fill in the blank spaces. Be ready for abbreviations. The full meaning of VDU, Visual Display Unit. Everybody should type it. So it gives out the result to the VDU. Now, this diagram is just a data flow to show you that it gets input, data as input, processing, and then output. Now, we can now go to the meaning of data. What's the meaning of data? Data, the term data refers to facts about a person, object, or place. Facts about a person, object, or place. Kindly define data in the chat box. Define data in the chat, not in your own term, according to the material, because your own term will not work. Your own term will not work for what do we call it now? Exam. Your own term will not work for exam. It has to be uh, the exact thing that the material is giving you. So data is very simple. If you are asked, I think this is a POP exam, you would have been able to define data in any form. There are so many definitions you can give to data, but the material has chosen this simple one. The term data is referred to facts about a person, object, or place. It's as simple as that. Once you remember that facts about anything is data, that is the definition of data, and that helps you in the exam. So the term data refers to fact about a person, comma, object, or place. Don't forget, every single thing in the material is important. Even that comma after the person, then object or place, they are all important for the sake of exam. Now, we have another thing called information. The data that you put into your computer as an input uh, material got stored in the memory, processed in the CPU, and came out as output. What came out as output is no longer data, it's now information. So what you get after your data has been processed is what we call information. But what is the material saying about information? Let's look at the definition of the material of information. Information is basically the result of a processed data. But what is the material saying? Information, according to the material, is referred to as processed data or a meaningful statement. So what is information? If you are asked now in an exam, this is an exam, and you are saying what is the full meaning of, or sorry, not full meaning rather, but what, or define the term information. What will you write there? What is information? Information. Yes, I need you to give us the meaning of information. According to the material, it is a processed data or a meaningful statement. So that is information. Now, we've been talking about giving the data to the computer for processing. Now, let's talk about the ways we can process data. The way they normally ask this question in the exam is, which of the following is not a data processing method? Which of the following is not a data processing method? They will give you manual method, mechanical method, computer method, and one other method that is not listed here. Basically, we have three ways of processing data. We have the manual method, which was the initial method they were using before the invention of computer. We'll read a bit about them. Then we have the mechanical method. That was the early stages of computers when they started producing things like calculator, typewriters, and the rest of them. Those are mechanical method, using machine. And eventually, we got to the stage of using computers to process data. Using computers to process data. Yes. So the three basic method of processing data that we have are manual method, mechanical method, and computer method. Those are the three basic method of data processing that we have. Three basic method of data processing that we have. Now, what is the manual method? Now, you will do well to list the three methods we have. List the three methods we have. Three methods of data processing you know. The three methods of that data processing you know. The manual, the mechanical, and the computer method. Just put that in your mind. If you want to use maybe a mnemonic or something to hold it, that is MMC in orderly manner. MMC, manual, mechanical, computer. So the manual method was the method that involves the use of chalk, wall, pen, pencil, and the like. So when you are using your pen to write now on a piece of paper, you are using a manual method of processing data. When you are using your pencil to draw, you are using a manual method of you know processing data. So anything that has to do with human being the one to facilitate the action in recording, in classifying, in manipulating, sorting, and presenting the data, that is the manual method. Once it involves human to facilitate or human effort to facilitate the actions in recording, classifying, manipulating data, sorting data, and presenting data or information. All that is manual method. So when you are asked in the exam to identify whether manual or mechanical or whether manual or computer, once you see that the scenario given to you contains more of human effort, it is human being that do more of the work, then that is a manual method. Then we have the mechanical method. Of course, okay, and then we have some shortcomings of the manual method. Let's look at some shortcomings of the manual method. Like manual method is very slow, is the accuracy is not part of it because it's full of errors. Errors are not easily corrected. When you are writing with your pen now and you made an error, to correct it, is either you cancel the whole thing or even tear the sheet of paper if it is an assignment that must not contain an error. You have to write again. So it's time consuming. It's going to waste your time. So manual method is time consuming. Its accuracy is very low. It's full of error. Error correction is also not easy in manual method. So, and then it's not neat enough. It's not tidy. Some of you even have handwritings that is, your Bible used to say that when the chicken writes, even the white man cannot read it. That is where some of your handwritings are. When you write like this, even you yourself, you'll be giving your to read it back later. It's be like God is giving you headache, your own handwriting. So where we I see that okay, not so many people have listed the types of data processing methods we have. The rest of you that have not done that, please do so. Manual method, mechanical method, and computer method. Every one of you should list the methods we have: the manual method, the mechanical method, and the computer method. MMC, manual, mechanical, computer. So we've talked about the manual method. Now we're going to the mechanical method. The mechanical method of data processing actually involves the use of machine. So if you are given a scenario in exam and asked to show if that scenario is manual method or mechanical method or computer method, once it is a method that you are seeing that there is an involvement of a machine which is not a computer, like a typewriter, a Ronio machine, calculator, just know that what they are talking about is a mechanical method. Mechanic. When you say mechanical, it has to do with machines. So the use of machine is what we call the mechanical method. And of course, It also has its own shortcomings and then advantage. The advantage of mechanical method is that it is faster than manual method. You understand? If you're using a typewriter to type now, you are likely going to be faster than using a pen on paper. And then there are also some shortcomings of the manual method you should not forget. These are not things you should cram. They are things that you should just digest naturally because you have them around you. One of the shortcomings of using mechanical method is that machine make noise. So when you are operating them, they make noise like typewriter. The noise will be disturbing the environment. And then apart from noise, they are very hazardous to your health. Like the typewriter now, if you see those that have typed on typewriter, you see their fingers, you will pity them because the thing is very hard. It's very hard. Why they may be catching the phone then, you understand, but it's very hazardous to their health. So machine, and even there are some of them that produce uh, maybe smoke or anything. Like now, if you are using we have mechanized farming, like we used to say now in this our time, mechanized farming, like all this using trailer and the rest of them on the farm to farm to make the farming system easy. Some of them produce large quantity of smoke and the rest of them, and then very hazardous to health. So one major shortfall of mechanical method is hazards to health. So but it is faster, of course. Error are also not if you made an error, a mistake, you can not easily correct it. Like the error made by a typewriter now, it's going to be obvious that there is an error there. So that is uh, that about mechanical method. So when you are asked questions on it, just know that once is dealing with health hazard and the rest of them, noise, large amount of noise and the rest of them, they're asking you about mechanical method. But if it's about using human effort extensively, they're asking you about the manual method. Now let's go to the last type of method, which is now the one we have in your own generation. All the methods we have mentioned earlier, they are not in this your current generation. They are actually methods of former generations, method used by former generations. That is why at the beginning of this section, we said that the computer is fast becoming the uh, uh, what machine of the 21st century. So we mentioned that at the beginning to let you know that what we now use is now the computer. What we use in our own time now is now computer to process data. We no longer dwell on, even some of you when you attend seminars or attend even church programs or even some school activities, you no longer carry pen and paper to type or to write down or jot down. You now use your tab, your computers, your phones. So all those mechanical or manual method, they are long gone. Those of you that are just joining, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. It's very important. All right, so let's continue with the computer method, which is the last method of data processing we'll be dealing with in this material. The computer method is basically a method of carrying out data processing in the following. Okay, just know that is a method of processing data using the computer. That's the computer method. It's as simple as that. You use using the computer to process data is known as the computer method of data processing. Now, data can be steadily and continuously processed. What are the features of computer method? What are the features of computer method? The things the computer method is known to do. Data can be steadily and continuously processed. You can be typing a book now and stop along the way. You come back later, continue. You may even notice an error, delete it, rewrite the correct one. All those, that is continuity in processing. You can do something on a particular text document now, later on you still do another thing on the same document. That is not possible with typewriter doing the mechanical method. Now, the operations are practically not noisy. Like when you are typing on your PC, you are not even doing anything. Everything is going smoothly. No noise, no hazard. There is a store where data and instruction can be stored temporarily and permanently. And also, errors can be easily and neatly corrected. Output reports are usually very neat, decent, and can be produced in various forms such as adding graphs, diagrams, pictures, etc. All those ones you cannot do them on the typewriter. Now, and then accuracy and reliability are highly enhanced. So those are the things or the features of the computer method. Any good thing you see they mention about data processing, like speed, agility, and the rest of them, they're all talking about the computer method, because you already know the shortfall of the manual and the mechanical methods. So characteristics of a computer, we have what are the things that made the computer outstanding when it comes to data processing. We've talked about the manual method, the mechanical method. Now, what are the outstanding features of the computer? We have speed. Among all other options of data processing we've mentioned, you find out that the computer is the fastest. So in computer there is speed. And what does speed mean? When this speed in terms of that data processing using the computer means that the computer can manipulate large data at incredible speed, and response time can be very fast. I want all of us to type that the speed in terms of computer, or in speed as a character of computer, speed as a character of computer means that computer can manipulate. So you write it, computer can manipulate large data at incredible speed, and response time can be very fast. Please write that down. So that is what it means that the computer has speed. Characters of the computer, that's behavior of the computer, that is speed. You will see now, some of you will just give ChatGPT a very small prompt, and it would have written a whole long note for you. That's speed. If you are to come up with that using your own manual method, using your own brain to figure out all those things, you will spend hours to come up with a very sound essay. But now you just ask your ChatGPT, and then everything is up. So that is it. So I'm waiting for you guys to write that speed as a character of the computer means that computer can manipulate large data at incredible speed and response. Thank you, Akinyemi. Thank you. Now, what are the other characters of computer apart from speed? We have accuracy. You should know what that means. If you compare it to manual and mechanical method, computer is more accurate. We have storage. Your typewriter wasn't able to store anything during the time they were using it, but now computer can store. So we have speed, accuracy, storage. We have automatic. You can automate operations in the computer. You can automate operations in the computer. Reliability. Since it's a machine, a computer does not suffer human traits of tiredness or lack of concentration, so it is reliable. As a human now, if you are working on a particular project and you are typing it and somebody just call you out, NEPA just brought light in your area, you shout, up NEPA, you leave what you are doing, you quickly go and plug all the things you are doing. For a computer, it doesn't happen like that. Once it's working on it, it continue working on it. The process continues until it is done. So it is reliable. You as a human, you are not reliable. Sometimes you are working on a project, you get hungry, you stand up, you go and cook noodles, you eat noodles first, then you come back and start working. By the time you came back, you've forgotten some of the things you were supposed to write, and you now start looking for ideas again. That is human being for you. Now, flexibility. Computer is very flexible in the fact that, or in the sense that it can perform any type of task once the logic has been initiated. It can perform any type of task, just like using ChatGPT. Now you can see the flexibility is reflected in that. Now, the computing system. We will now go to the computer system, or the computing system. Don't forget, we've talked about the meaning of a computer. We talked about data. We talked about information. We talked about the four ways or forms of or operations of the computer. When we say the things the computer perform, under that we've talked about the computer taking input through the taking data as input through the input devices like the keyboard. We've talked about the storage. It stores data in the storage unit, like the floppy disk, the hard disk, and the rest of them. And then it processes data in the CPU, like the central processing unit, like we mentioned there. and it also display result through the VDU, the visual display unit. Then we'll move from there to talk about data processing. Under data processing, we'll talk about the three methods we have: the manual, the mechanical, and the computer method. And after talking about that, we'll talk about their shortfalls, their advantages and disadvantages over each other. And at the end of the day, we concluded that the computer method is the best. We also talk about some things the computer can do, can uh, in terms of data processing, all the features of the computer. We'll mention a few of them. And finally, we talked about the characters of a computer. The characters of a computer, we mentioned among all others, we mentioned speed, reliability, automatic, and so on and so forth. So you just need to grab some of these things, definitions, and we move on. Now, the computing system is what we are into now. The computing system is made up of the computer system, the user, and the environment in which the computer is operated. It would be nice for us to type this in the chat box. The computing system is made up of the computer system, comma, the user and the environment in which the computer is operated. So when we mention the term computing system, we are talking about a whole lot of things. The computer is part of it. The user, you that are operating the computer, you are part of it. And the environment where you are operating the computer is part of it. That is everything we combine together to call computing system. So a computer system now is everything that surrounds operating a computer. So the computer system is made up of two major uh, parts that we can actually operate with. We have the hardware and the software. And now we'll be talking about each of them one by one. We have the hardware and the software. We have the hardware and the software. Now, the hardware, under the hardware, those are the physical components of the computer that you can touch, you can feel, you can relate with, like the monitor in your front, the keyboard, the mouse, the printer, the joystick. Every physical part of the computer that we can touch is called the hardware. You will do well to define hardware. You will do well to define hardware. Do well to define hardware. So the computer hardware comprises the input unit, the processing unit, and the output unit. But basically, the computer hardware is just any part of the computer that we can relate with. An example, we have keyboard, mouse, joystick, trackball, scanner, printer, and so on and so forth. Then that will take us to the processing unit. We have the processing unit, and other that we'll be talking about some abbreviations. In the processing unit, we have several things that make up the processing unit. That is where the main work that we call a computer is taking place. Every other thing you are seeing, the monitor that is showing you result, the keyboard you are typing on, the mouse you are moving around, the speaker giving you sound, the printer giving you every other thing you are seeing. The main thing, the main operation is going on in the processing unit. And there are so many things that make up the processing unit. One of them we have is the ALU. You will do well to type the full meaning of ALU in the chat box. You will do well. The meaning of ALU means arithmetic and. Don't forget the and. The year I wrote this GST103, then this question came out, and I remember I just wrote arithmetic logic unit. I've forgotten the and. So please, if that question should be repeated this semester, it is arithmetic and logic unit. So even though the and was not part of the abbreviation, it's a conjunction there. So arithmetic, and you should learn the spelling of the arithmetic. So that is another thing that can make you fumble in exam. Then another thing you will find in the processing unit is the main memory. And this main memory is also known as the primary memory of the computer. The main memory of the now, apart from the arithmetic and logic unit, the ALU in the processing unit, we also find the control unit there. The control unit is also part of the processing unit. Then we have the main memory. Then this main memory is made up of another name for the main memory is the primary memory. It's very important. These are things you pick when you are reading for exam. Another name for the main memory is what? The primary memory. You will do well to type that too. You do well to type that. Those of you that will be doing copy and paste, if I catch you, type your own. Type your own. Use your brain to type it. Make mistake. Make spelling mistake. Make everything mistake. Now, it's better to be making the mistake now and you see it through others and see that, oh, this is the right one, than for you to go and be making the mistake in the exam. So, under basically now we've mentioned about 4 things or so that we can find in the processing unit of the computer. We can find the ALU, we can find the control unit, and the main memory. We can find the ALU, control unit, and the main memory. Now, mention 3 things we can find in the processing unit of a computer. A short classwork for all of us. Mention 3 things we can find in the processing unit of the computer, where the computer is doing its own processing. That thing at the back of your laptop, when you open your laptop, when you check your motherboard, you see a part of it that contains several jargons that you can't even relate with. That is where the processing or the processor or the processing unit is located. Now, what are the major things we can find in the processing unit? There are about 3 of them. They have so many of them categorized under subheadings. Now, each of the subheadings, we have 3 of them: ALU, control unit, and the memory unit. So please list them. Those are the 3 things you can find in the uh, computer processing unit. Now, but under the main memory is also called the primary memory. So in case you are asked, dash is also known as the primary memory. That is the main memory, and it contains the RAM and the ROM. The main memory contains the ROM and the RAM. So what's the full meaning of ROM? What's the full meaning of RAM? You should learn that too. Please, ROM means read-only memory. Type that in the chat box too. I said earlier at the beginning of this class, you should be ready to type a lot today. ROM means read-only memory, and RAM means random access memory. While ROM means read-only memory, RAM means random access memory. Please type the 2 of them in the chat box. So we'll now go to the output unit, which is made up of those media through which data, instruction for processing the data program, and the result of the processing operation are displayed. When you are talking about output, we are basically talking about display, result, output, result, display. That is just what we are talking about. Input, that is the ones that enters the data into the computer, and then the processing unit, where the processing of your data takes place. What you want to do on your data exactly. That data, okay, you want to edit a video now, you upload the raw file into the computer as data, then you start the processing. Maybe you blur some parts, you brighten some parts, you cut out some parts. All that thing you are doing is called processing. You are processing the video, and the main work is taking place in the processing unit. The processing unit that contains the 3 major things, the ALU, the control unit, and the main memory unit. So we have the output unit also, like I've mentioned. Now, that is all on hardware. Don't forget, we're talking about the computing system. I will say the computing system contains everything we can see around the computer, like the computer system itself, the computer unit, the user, and the environment where you are operating the computer. That is what we call the computing system. Don't forget that. Then we said that we have the computer system itself under computing system. Now, there are 2 things. Computing system contains everything that has to do with operating the computer, like the computer system, the 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 user that is operating the computer, and the environment where the user is operating his computer. Then we pick the first one, which is the computer system itself, which is part of the computing system. So the computer system now is the one that contains 2 major things: the hardware and the software. It's now the hardware we've started with when we're talking about the main component, and then we'll talk about the processor. The processor is also is part of the hardware. You can see it when you open your laptop or your CPU, you see them there. So they're also hardware. And then we'll talk about the output unit. The output units are also hardware, where you can see your printer and the rest of them, every other thing, the monitor for display. So output unit is for result, for displaying result. So we'll now go to software. Software is the second part of the computer system. Software is the second part of the computer system. We have hardware and software. So now we're not dealing with, we've dealt with hardware, where you talk about under the hardware, we've mentioned things like the uh, physical parts that we can actually see. But the main things we also dealt with there, we'll talk about the processing unit, the main memory, and the output unit. They're all hardwares. Now, softwares. Computer softwares are series of instructions. This definition is very important. I don't know how often they repeat it, but it's a question in the question bank. Computer software are the series of instructions that enable the computer to perform a task or group of tasks. So it's very important to write down that definition. We have two definitions we are going to pick there. The first one is the definition of computer software. I've written it there, so just write your own. And the second one is, what is a program? A program is made up of group of instructions to perform a task. So we are breaking it down little by little. We've talked about the software. The software is or software on its own. They are a series of instructions that enable the computer to perform a task or group of tasks, while a program is made up of group of instructions to perform a task. I have two things there you have to type. There are two things there you need to type. So we now talk about computer users. Those are the people that operate the computers. Computer users are the different categories of personnel that operate the computer. We have the expert users, the casual users. The expert users could be further categorized into computer engineers, programmers, and operators. So those are the computer users. We have the casual and the expert. Then the computing environment, that is the third thing under computing system. All these things we are doing, they are just under computing system. The computing system that contains the computer system, the user, and the environment. So we'll talk about the computer system, the one that contains hardware and software. Now we'll also talk about the users, those where we have the expert users or the casual users, but all in any case, they are all people that operate the computer. And then finally, under the computing system, we have the computing environment, the environment itself. Now, the computing environment ranges from the building housing the other element of the computing system, namely the computer and the users, the furniture, auxiliary devices such as the voltage stabilizer, the uninterrupted power supply system, UPS. I don't know if you have seen the UPS in the computer lab before. It looks very small like this, like a stabilizer. What it does is when when there is a power outage, or when let me use our normal language, when NEPA takes light and you are still working on the computer, if the computer is connected to a UPS, the computer will not just go off immediately. It will still be operating on the power already stored in the UPS until the UPS is low before the computer will eventually go off. So you need to type the full meaning of UPS. Like I've said earlier, this course is full of abbreviations. You may even be lucky that most of your questions will be abbreviations. So the meaning of UPS is uninterrupted power supply system. Now, we have the fans, the air condition you put in the office. Just know that when you say environment, that office, that space you created in your house for operating your computer, for doing computer operations, is the space that we call the computing environment. Now, we move to other things. Let's move to other things. All these ones are not part of the things we are going to talk about. Now, I have a question here for all of us as a classwork and to check if we have truly gone through this unit very well. What is a computer? I'll give us 2 minutes to answer that. What is a computer? Yes, let's keep our answers coming in. What is a computer according to your material? The type you are going to type in exam. Computer. The question number one, the questions are on your screen. Number one is, what is a computer? 1B is, What are the advantages of computer method of data processing over manual and mechanical method? Just give two advantages why computer is more preferred than manual or mechanical method. Those are the two I'm going to ask you. The question two is a drawing. You don't need to do that. But 1A and 1B, answer it. What is a computer? And then what are the advantages of computer method over data processing? Oh, sorry, method of data processing over manual and mechanical methods. I'll give us 2 to 3 minutes to answer that. What is a computer? You answer it there, and then the advantages of just to give two advantages of computer method of data processing over manual. Or probably you can even talk about the characters of computer. You can give two characters of computer. It's also one of the advantages it has. Okay. Okay, yes, I can see the definition now. Computer. A computer is, I am asking for the meaning of a computer, and you are saying the computer is fast becoming the universal machine of the 21st century. That is not a computer. That is not the definition of a computer. Correct yourself. The right definition I gave you guys, what was it? What was that definition? A computer is basically, who is this person? Eniola. I'm likely going to give Eniola a card. Well, let me read that definition if it's totally correct. A computer is basically defined as a tool or machine used for processing data to give required information. I don't know if there is a comma that you did not include, but if that is the correct one, then you are hot. Eniola is very hot. That is awesome. Eniola is very hot. And then the rest of you too, getting it right. That is the right one, not is fast becoming a universal machine of the 21st century. That one is just some, addition. So, what of the advantage? Is fast and accurate. Thank you. That is as short as that. Okay, so we'll now go to the brief history of the computer. When we talk about the historical overview of the computer, this one is just going to be short. That is Unit 2. We are done with Unit 1. We are now going to Unit 2. Now, in this Unit 2, you will see that computer is evolving. That's the first thing you should know. Computer is evolving, it's changing. They started with one big box. Now we're having palm tops, laptops, we're having mobile phones, smartphones, you know, and so many devices now. So computer is truly, truly evolving. Truly evolving. Like it's evolving, it's changing, it's changing. It's getting better, it's getting better. It's getting better, it's getting better. So that is the first thing we should know about the history of the computer. Is always changing and getting better. So we are going to talk about now we'll not go deep into history, but anywhere we see years, we focus on them and see. But there is this question that they normally ask about the analytical engine, uh, which is how did they ask that question? Is a TMA question about the analytical engine. It was the work of Charles Babbage and Jacques Loom in 1805. But that is the way the question came in. Okay, we'll not dwell much on history. We'll not dwell much on history. I just want to go to first generation, second generation, and third generation, and the major things that happened in them and the year they occurred. The first generation of electronic computers happened in 1937 to 1953. Basically, in exam, they may not ask you this exact 3753. Sometimes they may just say the 1930s to the 1950s. So please, it's still the same thing. So when they write 1930s to 1950s, if that is what you see in the option, that is the correct answer. And if they write it exactly like this too, please note it. So let me ask us a question. The first generation of electronic computer occurred in which year? Between which year to which year? When did they record the first generation of electronic computers? So please answer that. It's very important. When did they record the first generation of the electronic computers? In what year? Now, what are the things that made up that type? I'm just going to pick the things we know they normally ask question on. So, in the first generation of computer, first of all, you should know that uh, the switch, fine. The question they normally ask on this generation is the switches that each generation used. The switches that each generation used during their time. During the first generation, they used what we call vacuum tubes. That is the switch. Electronic switches that were used during the first generation were in form of vacuum tubes. That vacuum tubes, like even the memory then, that one big drum like that. So they use vacuum tubes instead of electromechanical relays. So the first generation of computer used vacuum tubes as the switches. You understand? And that vacuum tube was not something reliable at all. It wasn't reliable. So that was the need for them to now start looking for better options. That will move us into second generation. Then you should know the type of uh, there is this technology. Okay, let's read it. Electronic component had one major benefit. However, they could open and close about 1,000 times faster than mechanical switches. They could open and close. There is still one thing we want to look for here in this first generation. The earliest attempt to build an electronic computer was by J.F. Atanasov. Like, he's a professor of physics and mathematics in lower, okay, I think that is over state in 1937. This question is also very important, but I think the major thing you should pick here is this. Was by this man. If you can repeat it by typing it yourself, it will be fine. So that is first generation. Basic thing to pick out is that the switches the first generation uses is the vacuum tube. First generation vacuum tube. First generation vacuum tube. It's even good you write it like that. First generation vacuum tube. Can you just write it like that? I will appreciate if you can write it. Like, you should write first generation vacuum tubes. First generation vacuum tubes. So that is the switch. Or that was a switch that was used in the first generation. And then another thing is uh that was the earliest attempt. It was also in that okay, no. The earliest attempt to have an electronic computer was by a man called J.V. Atanasov, and that happened in 1937. Note that 1937 in a state university in Owa. So, and that man was a professor of physics and mathematics. That is not even necessary. Now, all these ones are just history. Just know that first generation, they use vacuum tubes as switches. First generation uses vacuum tubes as switches. Then we have the first general purpose programmable electronic computer that was produced then was the ENIAC. Please, going to be very important for you to type the full meaning of ENIAC. It's very important. Like doing my set, I answered this question. I will not lie to you. The full meaning of ENIAC. Although they asked me then in OBJ. But even if you don't know the full meaning, whether they ask you in OBJ or they ask you in, it is the meaning you know. You understand? That when they ask you, it will make sense. So the first programmable, the one that you can program, not the one that is only engineers that can use it. The first programmable general purpose that anybody can buy and or probably operate is ENIAC. And the meaning of ENIAC is electronic numerical integrator and computer. You see all these full meanings. Always note the conjunctions that they use there. Yes, it's very good for you to add your own. Write it. Write your own. Don't say somebody have written it. Write your own. What is the full meaning of ENIAC? Write it the way it is here. So that is another thing that is very important. Then we move to the type of shop they use in first generation. We move to this. Okay, we have another one which is EDVAC. We have another one which is EDVAC. EDVAC. I don't know if we should dwell on EDVAC. Let's leave that. I'm trying to get the type of shop they used in the first generation. Then we'll leave all this story. I think the first generation uses that should be open shop. They use open shop if it's not closed. Let's check. You must know that one because they usually ask question on that, whether they use what kind of this thing they use in. Although the vacuum tubes used there operate on open and close. So first generation open and close. Now let's go to second generation. We've done justice to first generation. Major things we've learned from first generation is that in the first generation they use vacuum tubes as the switches. The switch they use in the first generation are called vacuum tubes. And then the first attempt to get a programmable to get an electronic computer was by JV, is it JV also Atanasov in 1937. He was a professor of mathematics and physics in Iowa University in 1937. We've also mentioned that. So another thing we've mentioned in the first generation is that the first generation took place in 1937 to 1953. 1937 to 1953. You should use something to hold the years in your mind, but just know something that the ever attempt at all of anything computer started from 1937. So once you know that the first year is 1930, you can start putting that if they ask you that the first generation, you should know that any option that carries 1930 to 19 something will be the first generation. It all starts from 1930 something or 1930s. So another thing is we mentioned the first electronic programmable computer, which is the ENIAC, and the full meaning of ENIAC. And then we mentioned that the type of shop it operates is open and close. It uses open and close method. Now we go to second generation, 1954 to 1962. I will employ us to type it. The second generation took place between what year to what year? The second generation took place between what year and what year? So the second generation saw several important developments at all levels of computer system design, from the technology used to build the basic circuit to the programming languages used to write scientific applications. The electronic switches in the second generation were discrete diode and transistor technology. What you should remember in second generation is that the switches it uses is transistors. They used to ask that which of the generation use the transistor technology. That is the second generation. While first generation uses vacuum tubes, the second generation uses transistor technology. So, and the speed is 0.3 microseconds. And the first machine to be built without the technology, without transistor, is the Tradic at Bell Laboratories in 1954. Tradic at Bell Laboratories in 1954. Well, the next thing we'll pick in that second generation is, excuse me, we are going to pick the type of, okay, during this second generation, many high-level programming languages were introduced. It was in second generation they started Fortran, Algol, and Cobol, and we have them in each with its year. Like Fortran was introduced in 1956, the Algol was introduced in 1958, and the Cobol in 1959. Don't forget. I know this course is going to be somehow interesting when you are writing in the exam. I just pray that the questions they will ask you will be the ones you can relate with. There are quite a lot of questions in this course. You can see it's very long, 326 pages. They combine everything you are supposed to know about computer together in one course. God will help you. Now, uh, I'll also talk about another important thing. The second generation also saw the first two supercomputers designed specifically for numeric processing in scientific application. The term supercomputer is generally reserved for a machine that is an order of magnitude more powerful than other machines of its era. So two machines of the 1950s deserve this title. The first one is the Livermore Atomic Research Computer, LAMAC, or sorry, the LAC, that is LARC. So that is the first supercomputer in second generation. And the IBM 730, which is also called Stretch. So if you're asked in the exam, that is also called Stretch. That is the IBM 70. So the first supercomputer is LAC. You can try to write the full meaning of LAC, and then that is LARC. And the second supercomputer in the second generation was the IBM 7030, which is also called the Stretch. So major things we've been discussing about second gen. Okay, let me talk about the last thing we'll talk about in the second generation. I want to know the type of shop it operates. Is it open shop or closed shop? That is important. You need to note that because those are the questions they usually ask on those generations of computer. So is the second generation a closed shop or an open shop? Where is it? I want to see it from here. So it's very important. We need to check that. We need to check that. Oh, excuse me. It is well. My phone is not. Okay, so the second generation, what have we discussed about it? Uh, we said so many things about it. That was the time they started using some advanced programming languages like the Fortran, the COBOL, and the rest of them. This same year was the year that they used transistors as switches. Transistors as switches. It was also in this same generation that we have supercomputers. The supercomputers like the LARC, and the IBM 7030, which is also called the Stretch. And uh, uh, excuse me. So the second generation uses the open shop mode, the open shop. So when they ask you in exam, the second generation uses open shop. The first generation uses closed shop. Closed shop. First generation closed shop. Second generation open shop. Sorry, what am I saying? First generation closed shop. First generation uses closed shop operation mode. Hmm? Closed shop. While the second uses open shop. Please, these are important things, so not just reading and reading. Put yes some important things like this in your mind. The second generation is shop, open shop mode of operation. So now we'll go to the third generation. What are the important things to pick out in the third generation? The third generation brought about huge gains in computational power. The third generation brought about huge gain in computational power. That is one thing you should note. You should note. You should note. I hope you guys are communicating in the chat box. Seems to have a very serious section, so I'm not even having time to check. Yes, of course, it's recorded. You will still see it after the class. And I will soon stop it to allow you guys to rest. We'll pick it up again in the evening. You just need to stretch yourself. Once it's too long, your head will start becoming hot. Or once you finish unit 2, maybe we'll do unit 3 if there is. Then we'll stop for this morning section. The afternoon section will come in later. So there are some important things you should know about the third generation. Excuse me. Okay, the third generation innovations in this era include the use of integrated circuit or ICs, that is semiconductor devices with various or several transistors built into one physical component. So the third generation uses semiconductors. They use semiconductors. And it was in this third generation that online real-time computers became popular. In the third generation, online real-time computers became popular. Online real-time computers became popular, and it uses semiconductors as switches. And what other things are we going to pick from there? You just pick important things. Is you won't read everything in the material if you don't want your head to become if you don't want something else to happen to your head. This one is a long material. So uh the third generation also operates under open shop, just like the second generation. And then the major thing you should pick from this third generation is that the third generation, first of all, it occurred between the year 1963 and 1972. That is, in essence, you can say it in the 1960s to the 1970s, I think. Yes, 1960s to the 1970s. And after that, another thing to pick there is that it uses semiconductors as switches. Semiconductors as switches. And then last thing is that it's in that third generation that we have it's also sorry it operates open shop. It operates open shop. First generation closed shop, second generation open shop, third generation open shop. Please bear that those in mind. So there are quite a lot of inventions, advances there, but don't put that in your mind. That will just be getting you bored. So let's leave that. Now we'll move to fourth generation. In summary, again, the third generation we've dealt with, it happens or it occurs within the year 1960 what is that, 3 to 72. So in the 1960s to the 1970s, those that lived then, they were living or operating the third generation of computers. And then during that time, they use semiconductors as switches, and they operate open shop mode of computer operation. And then we move to the fourth generation. The fourth generation occurred in 70s to 80s. So those that live in 1970s to 1980s, they've not born any one of us here then. I don't know. Some of you might be old grandpas and grandmas. Maybe they born you then, but most of us here, they've not born us then. But in that is the fourth generation of computer. It occurs in 1970s to 1980s. In the 70s to the 80s, we have the fourth generation of computer. What are the major things to pick in the fourth generation of the computer? Now, this generation uses VLSI, very large scale integration. Please, it's very important. Very important. They ask, in fact, even this one, it came out in TMA. For you to, if you notice that this question came out in TMA, that the fourth generation of computer uses dash. It uses very large scale integration as its own switches. So then in the fourth generation, people that live in the 70s to the 80s, they use very large scale integration. Please, everybody should type the full meaning of VLSI. Very important in the chat box. I'll wait for you guys. Yes. What's the full meaning of VLSI? Yes. We can start bringing them down now. First generation, vacuum tubes. Second generation uses, I think that the one that uses transistors. Third generation, semiconductors. Fourth generation, VLSI, very large scale integration. So that one uses a single chip. Is that one that uses a single chip. That VLSI uses it combines so many. Okay, thank you. Yes, everybody type your own. Don't say somebody else have typed it. Type your own. AY is not VLDI, it is SI. So note yourself. Now, what other important thing are we going to pick in this fourth generation? In this fourth generation, they started to use semiconductor memories to replace the core memories as the main memory in most of the computers. You understand? They started using semiconductors memories. So the fourth generation also uses the open shop mode. One important thing to pick here, one of the things that happened is that they started producing computers with very large main memory. An example of computer with very large main memory in the fourth generation, that is in the 70s and 80s, is Cray 2. Cray 2 is one of the computers with large memory. They started producing Cray 2 then, which is a computer with very large memory. Don't forget to type the full meaning of VLSI. It's very important, everybody. So we now have in that same fourth generation, we started having development in software. They started having very high languages like functional programming, Prolog, which is programming in logic. Prolog means programming in logic. It started in the fourth generation. In fact, quite a lot of achievement and advances in computing in the fourth generation. And it also operates the open shop. It operates the open shop. So we've done, I think we've done enough. And then let's pick something else. There are two important events that marked the early part of the third generation, which was the development of the C programming language and the Unix operating system, both at Bell Labs. I think this is a repetition because we're already in the fourth generation. Okay, let's leave that. Let's see all these stories. Let's go to the fifth generation. Just know that in the fourth generation uses VLSI, that is very large scale integration. It occurs in the 1970s to the 1980s, and it operates open shop. And what important things did we see there? It was in that same this thing that we have uh, large memories coming into space like the Cray 2, large memory like the Cray 2, and also the high programming language that Prolog, which is programming in logic. Then we have the fifth generation. The fifth generation occurred in the 1980s and in the 90, in the to the 1900. Even at this same age, they've not born some of us. So people that lived in the 1980s to the 1990s to the 1990, they operated computers of the fifth generation. Computers of the fifth generation. Yes, computers of the fifth generation, 1980s to 1990s. How many of you have they given birth to in this generation? If they give birth to you in the fifth generation, let's see your hands up. I know some of you will want to ask, what generation are we using now? In this our own 2021 or 2026 that we are? What generation of computer? No one will get there. But in the fifth generation, if they're giving birth to you in the fifth generation, let's see you. I want to see all our grandpas here. So the development of the next generation of computer system is characterized mainly by the acceptance of parallel processing. It was in the fifth generation that they started parallelism, which is was limited to pipelining and vector processing. All those ones are story. It saw the introduction of machines with hundreds of processors that could be working on different parts of a single program. The scale of integration in semiconductors continued at an incredible pace. So fifth generation still use semiconductors, but in a more advanced way. More advanced semiconductors have come into space. You understand? They use chips as their processors, they use microchips and the rest of them. Semiconductors, memories became standard on all computers. The major things in the fifth generation is that the semiconductors memories, they started adopting the semiconductors memory. And one other thing is that the introduction of computers with very large processors, like hundreds of processors working simultaneously on programs, started in that fifth generation. And then don't forget one important thing about fifth generation, which is parallel or parallelism, parallel processing or parallelism. If you are asked a question on parallelism or parallel processing, they are talking about fifth generation. Please, that is one important thing you should grab there. Parallelism or parallel processing, fifth generation, that occurred in the 1980s to the 1990s. So let's see if there is anything we should pick again before we leave this place. It was in that same generation they started producing machines that can think. Except producing machines that can think. Scientific computing in this period was still dominated by vector processing. Most manufacturers of vector processors introduced parallel models. In the area of computer networking, both the WAN. Okay, let's do some classwork. What's the full meaning of WAN? WAN, and what's the full meaning of LAN? LAN. I think you know those are very common terms. Very common terms. What's the full meaning of? Okay, don't worry, we've done that before. Just tell us the full meaning of WAN and LAN. That is WAN and LAN. What's their full meaning? So we are going on a good pace. We'll go to another topic very soon after we've taken some rest. So the sixth generation, Now to your question. Thank you. WAN is wide area network, while LAN is what? Thank you. The wide is correct. You guys know what wide is. Sorry, WAN means wide area network. Yes, fifth generation uses parallelism or parallel processing. Now let's take it from first generation again. First generation, vacuum tubes. Second generation, transistors. Third generation, I think third generation is one that use semiconductors and the rest of them. The fourth generation uses VLSI, very large scale integration. The fifth generation uses parallel processing or parallelism. And now we'll go to the sixth generation. Thank you, thank you. You guys are doing absolutely well. Now we can go to the sixth generation, which is now from 1990 till today, 2026. That is a new generation. The sixth generation has now seen several advancements in computing. So there are so many changes actually going on the fifth generation in this current sixth generation. So let's pick out the major things. I think till now we are still using this is your story. 1990 to date, sixth generation. It also began with parallel computing, both in hardware area and improved understanding of how to develop algorithm. So in the sixth generation also started with parallel programming, and later it combines parallel programming with vector architectures. So combination of parallel programming and vector architectures in the sixth generation. Parallel programming with vector architecture. Okay, it also sparked an interest in heterogeneous computing. This same sixth generation. I think I have not given us the year. Sixth generation, can you type the dates, the years, the occurrence? Started from the 1990s to our current date. And then we are picking important things. It uses both parallel programming, parallel processing with uh, vector architectures, both parallel programming, combination of parallel programming, parallel processes or processing with vector architecture in the sixth generation. Those are things you should type, things you should remember about the sixth generation. And then it's our current generation. So we know the things we are seeing as advances in the sixth generation. It's in this our sixth generation that networking became very popular, became very vast. Networking is now the order of the day. Networking is now sweet. Networking is now easy. So, having done that, we have done at least if they ask you a question under the history of computers now, you'll not be looking at it that what are they saying? At least in one way or the other, you have seen one or two things about the history of computer. In the afternoon section, we're having three sections today by God's grace. In the afternoon, we'll start another section. The afternoon section will start with Unit 3, which is classification of computers. Unit 3, classification of computers. That is when we're talking about digital computer, analog computer, hybrid computer, and when each of them came into space and their purpose. We also have, you will talk about classification by signal, classification by purpose. By signal, the type of signal they operate by, digital, analog, and hybrid. By purpose, we have special purpose and general purpose. And then by capacity, that is, we have the mainframe, the mini computers, and the micro computers. That is what we do in Unit 3 when we meet in the afternoon. For now, I will permit you guys to go and rest. You've started reading from your group before I called you guys for a reading section. So now, let me just give you guys and say by the afternoon section, probably by 4, this is already 12. So let's say by 4, we'll meet again for the afternoon section, this same course. And then in the night, if God permits, we're likely still going to meet in the night for another section. So please, this particular section, share it with your friends. Those that are not available, tell them to watch it, the download. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Those of you that want to go for Owambe, go to your Owambe and enjoy your life. Now, sister generation, Sadiq, Miriam, I don't know where you are getting your own sister generation from. Maybe you want to start another generation of computer on your own. So your own generation of computer will be sister generation. Well, you guys should be watching out. Sadiq Miriam will come up with a computer very soon. Our own generation of computer will be sister generation. All right, guys, do have a wonderful weekend.